Distinguished participants, it's my great pleasure to welcome you all to our panel on the green transition journey of the private sector. This is a great opportunity for us to present our views in such a significant platform like COP27 through Turkey's impressive pavilion. As you know, the green transition is a significant and necessary paradigm change towards sustainable and peaceful development aimed at the improving living conditions for all. The scientific research shows that the measures we will take to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in the next few decades are critical to prevent irreversible effects on the world's environmental ecosystem, as you know. We believe that the green transformation is a necessity rather than a choice for Turkey. With this understanding, representing the Turkish business world, the TÜSİAD positions the issues of the sustainability and the combating climate change as a priority. As a member of Business Europe, we contribute to the identification of the opportunities and the challenges for the European business community and to the policy-making processes at the European level. Most probably, you know, the TÜSİAD published the Building the Future with the New Mindset report in 2021 as a part of TÜSİAD's 50th anniversary. In order to achieve development in Turkey, the TÜSİAD defined environmentally friendly Turkey as one of the main pillars. In the first slot of our panel will give us a chance to present all hard work that has been undertaken by TÜSİAD. Before proceeding with our panel discussion, I would like to introduce our speakers. Burcu Otman Bektaş, Sustainability Manager at Akçansa and Head of the Paris Agreement and Climate Change Sub-Working Group at TÜSİAD. Oğuzhan Akınç, Consulting Manager at Interactive Çevre and Head of the Circular Economy and Waste Management Sub-Working Group at TÜSİAD. Fatih Memiş, Energy Manager at Arçelik and Head of the Energy Efficiency Task Force at TÜSİAD. And Tamer Soylu, Environmental and Corporate Responsibility Manager at Zorlu Enerji and Head of Forest Protection and Sink Area Sub-Working Group at TÜSİAD. Now, I would like to ask Burcu Otman Bektaş. Burcu Hanım, as you know, one of the most powerful implementation tools of the European Green Deal is the CBAM. The CBAM is very critical importance as it will affect certain sectors such as steel, cement, which have large share in our export to the EU. How do you evaluate the importance of the carbon pricing mechanism from the perspective of the private sector in the upcoming period?
Fatih Bey, thank you very much for the introduction and for your question. As we all know, the effects of the climate crisis are becoming more visible, and the European Green Deal is one of the most important developments regarding the climate change and climate crisis. And as you underlined in your question, CBAM, which was announced under Green Deal, is an important development for Turkish business world and the private sector companies when we evaluate our commercial relations with European Union. As it is known, CBAM will cover sectors of iron and steel, cement, fertilizer, aluminum, and electricity. but there is this possibility of expanding the scope of CBAM to include indirect emissions, chemicals, polymers, and other sectors. While the sectors that are reporting under the Turkish MRV regulation are ready in terms of reporting to a certain extent, the other inclusion of the other sectors might be challenging. Especially in the early stages of the implementation in terms of reporting and carbon accounting. Considering that CBAM will take place in 2 phases, in the first phase, there will be some operational burdens like carbon accounting, as I mentioned, and reporting. And in the second period, we will start to see the financial impacts, cost impacts on the private sector. Different scenarios can be mentioned about how CBAM will affect the private sector companies. When we analyze the various scenarios, which also TÜSİAD supported some of them, the costs can reach significant figures. Considering that costs, the business world, the Turkish private sector should be ready from today in terms of reducing greenhouse gas emissions, taking concrete steps, creating roadmaps, future roadmaps to reduce the emissions and get ready. One of the most important steps in Turkey is regarding CBAM is the preparation studies of the national emission trading system. This is an essential work to avoid the heavy financial impacts of CBAM on Turkish companies. But there is this important point that CBAM calendar should be taken into account when designing the mechanism, and also the mechanism should be in line with European Union's emission trading system. On the other hand, while CBAM affects some sectors directly, some sectors will be influenced throughout their value chains. For this reason, it will be not enough to define the impacts on single sectors. At this point, sectoral organizations should be involved in the process and participate in the process actively. Business organizations have the potential to be a bridge, act as a bridge regarding the communication between public and private sectors. Business organizations can transfer the steps taken by the public sector to the private sector organizations, and also can transfer the expectations and opinions of the private sector organizations to the government side. And this underlines once again the importance of the business organizations. At this point, TÜSİAD continues to work with the knowledge, with the awareness that it has undertaken important duties. In the first phases of CBAM, it will be important to build capacity of the private sector companies in the field of carbon accounting and reporting. Companies need to make accurate carbon footprint calculations. In this context, TÜSİAD carried out different studies through working groups, task forces, established especially for the climate change and CBAM. And there are several completed and ongoing studies to support the private sector, such as gap analysis and awareness-raising studies. TÜSİAD attaches great importance to sharing of the best practices of the companies within its members. And also, TÜSİAD acts as a bridge to transfer the knowledge of companies that are providing carbon solutions and transfer the knowledge of these companies to the manufacturers. TÜSİAD organizes some events to bring these solution providers with the manufacturers and the private sector companies. To summarize in a single sentence, researching the CBAM and its effects on the exporters, sharing the results of these analyses with the business world, supporting the governmental efforts, and transferring the public opinion, the public studies to the business world, and also transferring the needs and demands of the private sector to the government side. constitutes the main working fields of TÜSİAD.
Thank you very much. Oğuzhan Bey, the concept of the circularity is one of the key components of the green transformation. Considering the national and the international development, what are the contributions of the circular economy to the green transformation process? Please.
Thank you, Fatih Bey, and thank you for having me here in this panel. I hope COP27 will have successful results. Well, as an answer to your question, according to the United Nations, the world population has reached to 8 billion people as of yesterday, and it's increasing day by day. So depending on the increase, we have very serious need of resources that we use. And according to the World Overshoot Day, studies carry out that we are now using more than one planet, more than one Earth's resources. It's almost 70% higher than the resources that each and every year the world offers for us to use. We have exhausted this year's resources on July 28, and we are consuming more resources, and these resources are for the future generations. And every year we are stealing more and more from our future. And also with the climate change and due to the extreme weather events, we are losing more and more resources such as freshwater areas, forest and farmlands. For this reason, in order to ensure the sustainability of the business world, everyone and every company needs to realize the green transformation, and every company needs to put circularity at the center of their work. As you all know, new Circular Economy Action Plan was announced on March 2020, and the plan emphasizes the necessity of using sustainable resources, recycling, remanufacturing, refurbishment, and also the reuse of the materials. Since this transformation cannot be done alone by a single company, in order for the business world to achieve this green transformation with the circularity in their mind, companies must have an effective supply management and have their transformation with their suppliers and also in some cases with their customers for the end of product uses. Firstly, the circular economy concept is all about making better use of natural resources like forest, soil, water, air, and also waste. So circularity makes better use of resources, and companies are shifting to recycle and recyclable materials in order to reduce the amount of virgin materials, water, and energy used to produce their products for their production. Secondly, the product use and manufacturing is responsible for almost 45% of global greenhouse gas emissions, and circular economy strategies can reduce our use of resources and reduce the emissions. In addition, designing products that last longer will reduce the amount of waste and also reduce the amount of soil, water, and air pollution. Sustainable product design is a crucial part of circularity. In order to give an example, designing a plastic product that can be recycled would reduce the plastic waste in ocean, since it won't end up in the ocean and will be a part of a new product or material by recycling, so that both human health and environment and also the biodiversity would benefit from this. And also, need for recyclable materials does increase significantly year by year, and waste collection and recycling businesses will also need to improve, because secondary raw material will be more important for different manufacturing businesses, since circular economy model and the circular economy action model plan insists that more recyclable content has to be in the products. Improving waste management systems and facilities are also crucial. Last but not least, circular economy strategies boosting the economies and create more and better job opportunities. Product as a service, repairing, refurbishment, remanufacturing businesses are expected to increase in time in a couple of years. I hope I was on time for my question, Fatih Bey. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Oğuzhan Bey. Fatih Bey, the energy transformation is at the core of the decarbonization process. Considering the global economic fluctuations and the effects of the recent Ukraine-Russia war, how do you evaluate the agenda in energy policies?
Thank you, Fatih Bey. It is a pleasure for me to be a participant of this panel. Before passing to energy policies agenda of the countries, I would like to give a a short background that what we have faced in the short near history. Actually, we have been facing a series of systematic shocks over the past 3 years, and they caused an acute impact on national and regional energy systems and paved the way of today's energy policies. The first one is the COVID-19 pandemic. Faster than expected economic rebound after COVID-19 pandemic has caused an imbalance between energy supply and energy demand. While the world trying to deal with this situation, Russia's invasion of Ukraine has started in February 2022, and this invasion increased the severity of the crisis on global energy markets. We faced price volatility, supply shortage, security issues, and economic uncertainty. That's why International Energy Agency is calling this crisis as the first truly global energy crisis. And I believe that the impacts of this crisis will be felt for years. In the current situation, countries are trying to establish policies based on 3 dimensions: energy security, energy affordability, and of course, sustainability. When we look at the current policies in the short term, energy security and access to affordable energy are the first priority of many countries' agenda, rather than sustainability, unfortunately. Countries are trying to keep the lights on. Countries are trying to secure alternative fuel supplies, fill their gas stocks, and increase the oil and coal-fired electricity generation. Of course, these steps will increase the GHG emissions in the short term. Besides the short-term measures to try to keep lights on, many governments are also taking longer-term steps, and many are looking to accelerate structural changes. I would like to give some examples here. One of them is US Inflation Reduction Act. As you know, this act provides for almost $370 billion in energy security and climate change resilience investments. These investments is including clean energy technologies from solar to wind and electric vehicles, carbon capture, and hydrogen. The other important development is the European Commission Repower EU plan. This plan sets out how the European Union can reduce the resilience on Russian natural gas through energy efficiency, diversification of energy supplies, and accelerated rollout of renewable energy. The other development, India passed an amendment in August 2022, and in this amendment, they put an way to establishing a carbon market in India, make it easier for the government to improve energy-related standards for appliances and for the environmental performance of the buildings. My last example will be in Japan. Japan announced its Green Transformation Plan. This plan lays out a longer-term vision for energy efficiency, renewables, energy storage, and advanced nuclear to reach Japan's carbon neutrality target for 2050. As a result, in the short term, we may see increases in GHG emissions, but in the long term, I am optimistic with the new policies that I explained here. They are driving energy efficiency measures and increasing in renewable energy investments. Thank you.
Fatih Bey, thank you. Tamer Bey, in the latest Turkish greenhouse gas emission inventory published by TÜİAD, a higher increase in the net greenhouse gas emission data is observed due to decrease in carbon sink capacity. Can you tell us about the content of these reports and what is the TÜSİAD view on the subject of forest and carbon sink areas? Tamer Bey, you are mute.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Fatih Bey. I will try to summarize it for you with a short presentation. Can I get a permission to presentation, please? Thank you. Dear participants, Fatih Bey, today, based on the outputs of the project carried out by the Forest and Sequestration Areas subgroup under Environment and Climate Change Working Group within TÜSİAD, I will submit my presentation about the study on carbon offsetting opportunities and challenges for private sector in Turkey, which has been carried out in cooperation with the Nature Conservation Center under the leadership of TÜSİAD. I will elaborate on 5 main titles: Objective, Challenges, Opportunities, Vision, and Roadmap. Our objective is the role of forests and sequestration area in combating the climate crisis has been defined is evaluating emission reduction opportunities for the carbon positive private sector. Forest ecosystems play a critical role in fight against the climate crisis, as they both store carbon through photosynthesis and also due to their climate regulation effects. For this reason, protecting the existing forests, increasing their carbon storage capacity, and creating new sequestration areas in combating the climate crisis are the steps to be taken to reach the net zero emission target. However, Turkey's semi-arid climatic conditions and topographic structure cannot provide required level of opportunities that will contribute to the realization of offsetting activities by growing trees and planting forests. Our challenge is general desire for afforestation leads to misperceptions such as consideration of afforestation as the only mean of offsetting. Second challenge is limited afforestation due to physical and climate conditions. Third challenge is trade-off between afforestation and other land use practices. The fourth challenge is the arid landscape with a limited potential for carbon sequestration, not feasible in terms of investment cost and carbon sequestration capacity. 5 challenges is existing legislation on land use and management does not enable active participation of the private sector. The 6th challenges is global biodiversity hotspot. Extensive afforestation studies will jeopardize biodiversity. We have some opportunities. The motivation of the private sector around global and EU mechanisms. Second opportunity is existence of the leading organization like TÜSİAD. Third opportunity is collaboration and close relationships with NGOs, academia, and government. Fourth opportunity is existence of good knowledge based on afforestation, offsetting, UNICEF, and biodiversity. We have a 5 vision bullet. First vision bullet is being carbon positive while synchronously supporting society, environment, as well as economy. Crisis and biodiversity crisis together. Considering other function of forest through ecosystem services for trade of analysis. Moving from carbon-based afforestation to multi-benefit ecosystem restoration perspective, considering other carbon offsetting opportunities apart from the afforestation. For sure, the most important aspect is having a measurable, reliable, and verifiable process. Last but not least, public, NGO, and private sector cooperation is indispensable on this part. We think that the results of the study will be able to be shared in the first month of 2023. Thank you.
Ömer Bey, thank you. Now, in the second round, the Burcu Hanım, you know, the reducing the carbon footprint plays a critical role in combating the climate crisis and increasing the global competitiveness of the Turkish private sector. And recently, many policy and legislation changes have been undertaken in this field, including the climate law and NDC preparation. In this process, the implementation of an ETS compatible with the EU and science-based targets also come to the fore. Can you tell us about the work carried out by TÜSİAD in this field?
Thank you, Fatih Bey. As we all know, with the ratification of Paris Agreement, Turkey's ratification of Paris Agreement and the net zero targets announcement, the studies on the climate change and fighting against the climate change gains momentum. And yesterday was an important milestone as the nationally determined contribution of Turkey was announced. As you mentioned, there are some hot topics in the agenda, such as the NDC was announced, but the preparations of the NDC was a hot topic. Preparation of climate law, the emission trading system are hot topics of the public sector. And also for the private sector, net zero targets, science-based targets initiative, and several topics like this are in the agenda. And in this context, it's very important to prepare the business world, prepare the private sector for this developing mechanisms is important. And to support business world, TÜSİAD carries out several studies for the business world to adapt the developing mechanisms much more quickly. And TÜSİAD attaches great importance, as I mentioned in the previous round, for best practice sharing within its members. Here, I would like to point out that carbon pricing is an important, internal carbon pricing is an important tool for private sector companies. There is this work of TÜSİAD, which includes the internal carbon pricing systems and best practice examples of TÜSİAD members. TÜSİAD prepares this position paper to accelerate the adoption of companies to the new mechanisms from today. Also implementation examples are given in this study. And on the other hand, as we discussed in the first round, CBAM, a most important step taken towards CBAM is the preparation efforts of a national emission trading system in Turkey. And here, TÜSİAD plays an important role. One of the most important duties is to integrate the expectations of the business world to the public efforts. In this context, TÜSİAD strives to act as a bridge in matters such as the communication of the demands and needs of the private sector with the government. Here, TÜSİAD participated to the Climate Change Coordination Council, am I right about the name, İDUK, İklim Değişikliği Koordinasyon Kurulu. TÜSİAD participated to the negotiations to represent the Turkish real sector. And also during the preparations of national NDC, TÜSİAD actively participated to the negotiations and to the development of scenarios and analysis processes. And also, during the climate law preparations, TÜSİAD shared the consolidated views of the and expectations of the business world to the governmental bodies. On the other hand, TÜSİAD actively participates to the ongoing projects. There was this PMR project, as we all know. Now, PMI project is ongoing, and TÜSİAD participates to the project. And also with the sub-working groups focused on carbon pricing, TÜSİAD communicates with the governments-related commissions during the preparation of national emission trading system, shared the assessments of the possible impacts and expectations of its diverse members from a broad view. And here TÜSİAD attaches great importance that the CBAM calendar should be taken into account. There are several critical points when designing the emission trading system, like free allowances, like the related regulations. Also, TÜSİAD has a position paper about emission trading system that was shared with the public side. And also, we mentioned about the science-based targets. For the business world, for the private companies, science-based targets are getting more important, and it's good to see that several companies are giving net zero commitments. But there is a need for capacity building. Here, TÜSİAD acts as a bridge between the companies that are that have given the science-based targets with the other companies, and also TÜSİAD carries out awareness-raising studies to build capacity, and these studies are great importance to strengthen the private sector companies and prepare them to the developing mechanisms like emission trading system and also to the climate law.
Burcu Hanım, thank you. Oğuzhan Bey, the EU Circular Economy Action Plan is defined as a strong, consistent, and coherent policy framework for sustainable, waste-free products, services, and business model. For this purpose, it's planned to carry out efforts at all levels, including the regulation, standardization, investment, innovation, and dialogue with the social partners and the International Business Association. In the light of all these developments, what are the efforts undertaken by TÜSİAD, and which regulations and policy tools do you think will help the transition to the circular economy?
Thank you, Fatih Bey. First, let me explain the TÜSİAD efforts and then the policy and the regulations. In line with the European Union, the Green Deal and the new Circular Economy Action Plan, TÜSİAD aims to support the development and competitiveness of the Turkish business world by operating in accordance with sustainable development goals. And in this direction, what will the European Green Deal, the new Circular Economy Action Plan, brings to the Turkish business world? Report was prepared last year in 2021 with a project carried out by TÜSİAD. And with this report, how the sectors in the value chains included in the Circular Economy Action Plan that are in commercial relations with Europe will be affected, and what kind of strategies and regulations will be developed in the near future was revealed. So any sector that is under the value chains could also be beneficial from this report. Simultaneously, a position paper was prepared, which includes recommendations on the areas that needed to be developed and regulated in terms of legislation in the transition to circular economy model. Particularly, what are the bottlenecks with the current regulations for circular economy transition, and improvement suggestions were also included in the position paper. With the Business World Plastic Initiative, the İPG, İş Dünyası Plastik Girişimi, which TÜSİAD is co-founder with Global Compact Turkey and BCSD Turkey, the signatory companies make commitments to reduce single-use and problematic plastics, and the Secretariat monitors the commitments and their progress, the progress of the companies, and also provide trainings for the signatory companies. Initiative aims to support the use of plastics, which is an extremely important raw material, and more efficiently and not cause environmental pollution. TÜSİAD also supports the green transformation of the business world in line with sustainable development goals with many webinars, panels, and events. There are several more studies have been carried out, but we have a limited time, so I can move on to the second part of the question. It's not possible for this transformation to happen only with the efforts of the private sector or the NGOs. So there's also a need for facilitating and supporting legislation studies by the public sector. So in this sense, Turkey needs to prepare its own circular economy strategy, its own strategic plan. A technical support project was initiated in the Ministry of Environment, Urbanization and Climate Change to prepare Turkey's circular economy action plan. With this 3-year project, it is aimed to plan the roadmap necessary for Turkey to achieve this transformation. And as I mentioned in the first round of the panel, the most important part of the circular economy is resource efficiency, and this can be done by industrial symbiosis applications, and it has to be widespread in Turkey. Investments targeting industrial symbiosis should be created, and there should be factors facilitating these steps on the legislative side. And also, extended producer responsibility is another topic for the circular economy, and it's stated under the EU Circular Economy Action Plan. So every single value chain products should be under the extended producer responsibility, and it has to be regulated fairly. In addition, the whole world now sees waste as a resource with the circular economy. For this reason, the waste, which is now considered as a secondary raw material, need to have a certain criteria and standards. The amount of qualified recycled materials should increase, and the recycling industry should progress by developing. Of course, for all these studies, support is needed for the businesses in terms of both legislation and also financially. In order for the companies to realize this transformation, financial instruments, incentives, and supports need to be expanded. I know that there are some private companies are giving these supports, but it has to be in each and every part of the regulations and documents that companies that are in the circular economy, that are transitioning the circular economy model, can find a relative financial instruments and incentives easily. According to the Circularity Gap report, it is crucial that countries should have more ambitious NDCs, and also businesses should adopt circular economy models if you want to control the temperature increase within 2 degrees. So circular economy is not a fancy title right now. It's a must that we have to go through. Thank you.
Thank you, Oğuzhan Bey. Fatih Bey, the energy efficiency is now a top priority for all the sectors, especially the industrial sector, as a result of the recent developments worldwide. What is the position of TÜSİAD in this matter? Who is responsible for efficient policy implementation in the field of energy efficiency?
Thank you, Fatih Bey. As you know, energy efficiency is the first fuel or the first strategy of the global energy system, and it is the key solution in achieving the energy transition in short term. There are lots of reasons why we call energy efficiency as first fuel, but I will mention 2 of them. One of them is the energy efficiency offer some of the fastest and the most cost-effective actions to reduce CO2 emissions. As an evidence, we can look at the Turkey's National Energy Efficiency Action Plan. In this action plan, there are 55 actions defined in 6 categories, and it is projected to achieve $30 billion cumulative savings by 2033 with only $11 billion investment. The second one is energy efficiency has a vast potential that remains almost untapped. There is a significant energy saving potential, minimum 30% in building sector, minimum 20% in industrial sector, and minimum 15% in transportation sector. When we look at the subsector basis, these ratios can go up much higher. When we consider all these issues, as the president of TÜSİAD Energy Efficiency Task Force and as the manager of Arçelik, I really feel pressure on me. Because from the beginning of this event and the previous COP events, everybody talks about the importance of action. And energy efficiency is standing there as an area that has proven itself and extremely feasible and ready to take action. For your question, who is responsible? I always say that it is not a one-man job. Multi-stakeholder collaborations are essential to enable a step change, as also Oğuzhan Bey mentioned. I can divide these collaborations into three: collaborations between customers and producers. It is simply that producers should produce low emission, more energy efficient products, and customers should buy these products. The other collaboration is collaboration among industry and cross-industry peers. In this collaboration, knowledge sharing between industry peers is required. And of course, finally, collaboration across a wider ecosystem of stakeholders that includes governments, policymakers, financiers, researchers, and NGOs. In this collaboration, energy efficiency standards should be created, integrated research for low carbon technologies should be done, public-private partnership should be provided. As TÜSİAD Energy Efficiency Task Force, we are trying to be a bridge between industry, policymakers, financiers, and try to create a powerful drivers and enablers for energy efficiency. One of the most important example of this is our energy efficiency position paper. As you know, we presented this document to related ministries in several times. This document includes more than 30 action plans relating to Turkey's energy efficiency and incentive mechanisms. I am happy to say that relevant ministries are very open to these suggestions, and many of our proposals are already included in the legislations till now. Also, we have held some webinars to increase energy efficiency awareness in industry. The other one is as TÜSİAD Energy Efficiency Task Force. We are attending many workshops, including National Energy Efficiency Action Plan and Turkey's new NDC studies. And in these workshops, we conveyed our views. We make a lot of meetings with insurance companies in Turkey to contribute to creation of energy efficiency specific insurance products. And finally, I would like to state that we are working on a new project to start an energy efficiency campaign in Turkey, including SMEs. I will not give the details of this project since it is still under development, but TÜSİAD aims to increase awareness of all industry, including SMEs, and let them to take action by giving targets. Thank you.
Thank you, Fatih Bey. Tamer Bey, we observe that the carbon offsetting efforts done by the private sector through the forest and other areas in many countries can be included in various certifications. By this way, the private sector does not only protect existing the forest and the other the areas, but also the offsets its emissions stem from its own activities. It's obvious that the existing forests, other areas, and the land management practices are of vital importance for the offsetting efforts for Turkey as well. In this context, how do you evaluate the current landscape of Turkey in carbon offsetting, and what are the factors that you find crucial for Turkey and Turkish business work in this process? Please.
Thank you, Fatih Bey. Forest ecosystems have an important role in combating climate change. These ecosystems are also affected by the effect of climate change in different ways. Changes in temperatures due to climate change, especially drought, affect the life cycle of trees and cause structural changes in forests. Due to the increase in temperatures, the frequency of forest fires is also increasing, and there is also increase the diseases, insect and fungal damages. Another problem which comes along with climate change is the increase in environmental suitable for the spread of invasive species. The pressure caused by climate change that forests are exposed to cause habitat loss, disintegration, and deformation in forest ecosystems. It's possible to see a decrease in species diversity and genetic diversity in forest ecosystems. It's predicted that climate change will also bring along a decrease in the invaluable ecosystem function provided by forests. Forests are among the most important ecosystems supporting life on Earth with a wide variety of products and functions. They provide to human societies. The functions provided by forests can be mentioned under four main headings: supply functions, regulatory functions, supporting functions, and cultural functions. Supply functions include wood production, products, and medical and cosmetic production. Regulatory functions include climate regulation, reducing air pollution, cleaning water. Supporting functions include food cycle, soil formation, primary production. In cultural function, the use of forests as recreation areas can be given as an example. Forest ecosystem enables storing carbon in both tree trunks and soil. Forests make up 92% of terrestrial biomass and store approximately 400 gigatons of carbon. For this reason, forests are thought to play a major role in combating the climate crisis. In addition to carbon sequestration, forests also play an important role in regulation the water regime. Healthy forest ecosystem also clean water by reducing erosion and retaining nutrient salts in the water with their strong root system. It's also important in terms for flood prevention as they slow down the surface flow and store the water. In order to reach the net zero emission target globally, the studies to be carried out in the LULUCF sector are also great importance. In this context, special evaluation considering the effects of not only the forests but also other nature areas on carbon sequestration is required. In the Sustainable Carbon Cycle report issued within the scope of the EU Green Deal, it's recommended to reduce fossil fuel dependence in order to offset the effect of carbon emission and in order to increase carbon sequestration. It's recommended to expand nature-friendly agricultural practices and to encourage industrial solutions. In this context, carbon farming initiatives to contribute 42 million tons of carbon dioxide storage to Europe's natural carbon sequestration areas by 2030 have been stated as a target. Biodiversity, which represents the diversity of life on Earth, also forms the basis of our economic, cultural, and social well-being. However, biodiversity has been decreasing rapidly in recent years due to human-induced threats. It's estimated that about 1 million out of the 8 million animal and plant species are threatened with extinction. The climate crisis and biodiversity crisis work in both ways. Climate change is one of the main cases of decrease in biodiversity. However, destruction of ecosystem, regulating nature's greenhouse gas emission, and climate regulation function are decreasing. This situation increases the effects of climate change on biodiversity and its vulnerability. For this reason, considering climate change and biodiversity crisis together is very important. As the sequestration areas balance carbon emissions, they play an important role in handling the crisis. However, for the long-term sustainable effect of the efforts to create a sequestration areas, it's necessary to consider the ecological dimension of these practices, rather than merely observing carbon sequestration. For this reason, it should be essential to determine biodiversity criteria and sensitive areas that may be affected from sequestration area formation efforts and include these criteria and ecosystem restoration perspective in practices.
Tamer Bey, thank you very much. In the closing step, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to our Ministry of Environment, Urbanization and Climate Change for providing such an important opportunity for us to explain our transition journey and our approach to more green and sustainable future. Within the scope of our event, we did touch upon the importance of CBAM and carbon pricing in the green transition process and steps that should be taken by stakeholders in this area. We talked about the need to establish an ETS in Turkey in order to achieve a sustainable development model and avoid potential negative impacts from CBAM. As a part of green transition, we did assess the energy efficiency agenda. It is clear that the renewable energy and energy efficiency have been key tools in our hands to create lower emissions and for transition to clean energy. We did discuss the important role of the circular economy and carbon sink areas in combating climate change. We had an opportunity to closely share the work of TÜSİAD in this area and listen to first outputs of the report titled "The Role of Forests in Combating the Climate Crisis in Turkey," which will be published in the coming months. I would like to thank our distinguished panelists for their valuable and sincere contribution. Thank you.